Hey, you like cars? Back again, CarQuicks Podcast, and you know what episode this is, right? This is a little bit of a milestone, okay? We're at episode 50, season 2, but episode 50, or no season, but we're episode 50, CarQuicks Podcast, and it feels good because however minuscule that milestone might be to the grand scheme of the podcast, for me, it means something. So, how are y'all doing? Doing fine? You feeling well? How's the week been treating you? How's the year been treating you? But we're here to drive in and talk about something. So this particular episode, we're not talking about car news in particular, like models that are coming out or things like that. We're kind of talking about something that I've mentioned before. So a couple podcasts many ago. Actually, I have a podcast where the thumbnail that I use talked about the government spying on cars. I brought this up more than once. And what I'm going to talk about is an article that I read in the New York Times, right? Some of us still read the New York Times. Some of us still read a newspaper, okay? Some journalists. There was an article about a week or so ago from New York Times, and it was titled "Automakers Are Sharing Consumer Driving Behavior with Insurance Companies," right? A few podcasts ago, when I say a few, it's more than a few, but I talked many times about electric cars, these AI systems in cars, concierge services in cars that are reading data of like where you live, where you drive, all these automated systems that they bring out and talk about being easier on your life. Like, we're gonna anticipate your route home to let you know if Starbucks has a long line or not, or if the grocery store is currently packed by the time, they're just trying to show you different things to say, we're trying to make your life easier. But there's always data being sold. I've repeated that time and time again. Even if they say we don't share it, we're not giving it away, you can opt out. There has been numerous occasions when it comes to automobiles in general, sharing information that have shown that it does not follow the same rules that we might have for maybe cell phone companies, or maybe how Apple pushes privacy and not allowing even government agencies to get inside of your phone. That is not the case when it comes to cars. I mean, it is a wild, wild west when it comes to the authority that they have for what you're driving, where you're driving, how you're driving, and what they can sell for that. So the reason why this article came up and I found it interesting is because it echoes what I've been saying, right? If you're opting in for any service that is tracking any information that you're doing, rest assured, okay, rest assured that they are selling your information for money. There's profits to be made. Nobody's collecting data at this magnitude or at this level for free. I mean, they got better things to do. So if you're going to sit around and say, I'm going to make a system and an application and the data center, and I'm going to hold all this information just because I like to hold the information, it's always a profit at the end of it. So where this article came up and a lot of people talked about it, it showed up in plenty of even in my GR Corolla forums, people are popping up saying, hey, did you hear about this? Now, granted, I'm in the tech world or things that I like to read about, so this wasn't news to me. I was like, I've been, quietly, I don't want to say sounding the horn, I'm not no whistleblower, but I've talked about this before. I said time and time when insurance companies are running around with little dongle, like, oh, put the little iDrive kit or the ride and share kit inside of your car, and we can monitor how you're driving this for the next 6 weeks and give you even lower rate. Like, if you were foolish enough to put that in your car, then you're fine with it. I know there is a subset of people that feel like, well, they already got my information, they already got it, so it's just let them have it. I don't care. I always argue that by saying, that's like me telling you, because I already know where you live and you have windows in your house, there's no need to lock the front door because I can break a window and still get inside, right? So we might as well just not even do anything. We might as well just let it be a free for all. Leave the doors wide open, right? Don't we? I mean, if you're going to give your information just because you've given some, doesn't mean that it should be a free fall on all the information that you have, especially when it comes to something that might be as simple as just not giving the insurance company the information you need for some dongle in your car. Like, why you want to do that? But anyways, what came out was a story. It kind of started off with the article was a story about a gentleman named Mr. Dahl that in like 2022 his insurance rates shot up, right? He was driving, he had I forgot what car he had. I think he had like a Chevrolet or something. Chevrolet Bolt, had it for years, older gentleman, 65 years old. And all of a sudden his insurance rate on the next renewal period jumped up a very substantial percentage, not 5 or 10%. We're talking about 25, 30% or something enough to make him be like, why did that change? And when he went to investigate what happened, he found out that he had been risen in rate because of certain actions that he had taken when he was driving his car. Everybody who drives, right? Especially if you drive in Houston, at some point in time in your life as a driver in Houston, you have slammed on your brakes. Okay, it just is what it is. And you have tried to accelerate pretty aggressively to jump onto the freeway so you don't get yourself blown off the road. So imagine if you're just trying to manage, I'm gonna give an example. Imagine you're trying to manage a 610 loop every day you commute to work, which is in itself a tragedy, okay, of insanities of what they did when they're trying to build the exchange to 59, 69. Listen, we're not going to go there. Okay. Whoever designed 610 and the idea of how the city's growing don't care about efficiency. But imagine you're trying to navigate that loop every day. And every day you do have to hard brake. Every day you kind of have to accelerate pretty aggressively to get into a gap, move the traffic along. And every time you do that, they talk to an insurance company and say, look at how aggressive this person's driving. Also, look at the time they're driving. They're driving at the prime time for accidents, as if you had an option to try a different time because you're commuting to work. So let's you're commuting to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, everybody's out on the road because we're all doing the same thing. And if the time you do it is considered the most heightened risk, then all of a sudden you get a bad score saying, well, look how he's driving. He had to do a couple hard breaks this week. He accelerated pretty aggressively a couple times. We're going to, jump his score because he's a high risk driver. Not bringing into context what it is that you're doing in driving. So this gentleman, he gets report back showing all the information, the things that he has done. And the reason they gave an example of a trip he took that was only 7.3 miles. During those miles, they said he had two rapid accelerations and two incidents of hard braking. That one trip was enough to raise his insurance rate over 20%, just off that. Now, who do they sell it to, right? Well, one of the big companies that they sell it to is called LexisNexis. They are a company that just pulls data for a variety of industries, for a variety of people that they're being sold to. And whatever you think you're not opting into, what it gets brought up in is in the connected services of the car. See, it's a lot easier to say, I don't want to opt in for the little ride along little doodad that you put in your car to see if you've been driving good for the 1 week. Some people kind of spoof it. They just drive like grandma for the first week and it'll give them a better rate. And then if they come back later, they do the same thing again. So there's ways that people have probably gamed the system, but that proves to show you that the system isn't even there for anything about safety. It's about making money. So they got this one person that did well, then they got another person who keeps it on for a while, and they all of a sudden get a bad rate, or they change their rate later as they try to keep it on or put it on again and say, hey, the first time you did this, you kind of were a little aggressive on the acceleration. So on your renewal, we're going to kind of bump you up to see if you've improved. Like just stuff like that. It just is a vicious cycle. So he finds out this is being sold to this company called LexisNexis. New York Times is a deep dive trying to figure out what is going on because obviously as a driver, he feels betrayed. He's like, I didn't even know this was happening. I didn't ask to sell my data, and he didn't. What he did opt into is for the connected services. Things like OnStar, things like Toyota's Service Connect, I believe it was called. Like I have, like that was in the GR Corolla or my wife's Sienna. Other online connected systems, even Teslas, even electric cars, those are even more so about it because they tout technology and the ease of things like, automated driving, better, or cruise control like GM Super Cruise. So they're always going to push, further and further about you opting into a service under the guise of convenience, right? So when it's checking the system, what they don't make it blatantly obvious about is that you are opting into a service that is tracking and selling your information. You might be able to opt out saying, I don't want to do that. But even during this phase of this article, one of the journalists went through the steps of setting up one of GM's like OnStar, little connected services. And at no point in time during the service or during the setup did they even get something that was explicit on saying, we're selling your information. This is what you're opting into. It was very vague. It's always like, do you want cruise control? Do you want navigation? Connect to services. We can help you if you get on the roadside assistance. You can get a little accident. If you need gas, if you need concierge services, all of it is wrapped into a nice present for convenience. But that's not what this is about. Like, nobody's really trying to do any of this for convenience. I'll give you a perfect example. If you're looking at like somebody like OnStar, they have these ads even on, I've seen them on Instagram. They're called like OnStar ambassadors. And there'll be some wild post. It'll be like a couple by a fire holding hands, making s'mores. And they'll say, without OnStar, we wouldn't have been able to make it to the campsite in time for our child's 35th birthday party. We were hosting for him as a surprise as a grown adult graduating. OnStar guided us here. It's something crazy. And what they're doing is they're selling it as if it's a lifestyle, saying, hey, only the most well-educated and, middle class, high class people that can drive Tahoes and other connected cars from GM are in this group. They're like, we're in a special circle. So you get people that are influencers that become like OnStar and back. These people do not care. There's no way you're going to comment on one of their posts and be like, hey, can you tell me the ins and outs of the OnStar contract for what they're tracking information? They're going to be like, please refer to your dealership. I'm here to get the check. Okay. I am an OnStar ambassador for the bag. Okay. Once I'm done here, I don't care what you're doing. So they'll have ads like this, and it proves that what they're selling is trying to sell a lifestyle. So you go to buy a Tahoe, you go to buy some GM vehicle. I'm using GM as an example, but take any of your most your favorite brand. It could be Hyundai, Mitsubishi, Honda. All of those brands have something that is very similar to OnStar, very similar to some connected service. So you're going to these dealerships, you go into like Toyota dealership and you say, hey, I want to get a car. They want to sign you for the connected services. Hey, it got remote start, it got navigation, it got, concierge service to find the itinerary, it got this to find that. It can locate your car if you lose where it's parked, it can honk the horn for you. All this stuff sounds like a world of convenience. Like, you're like, oh man, I don't got to worry about where I park now. I can just look at my phone on the app and it will flash the light for me. How convenient. But what it doesn't show you is like on Toyota services, for instance, there's a thing called My Drive Pulse or Drive Pulse, right? And the very first time they had given me some trial, and I was in a GR Corolla. The first time I saw this thing pop up, it was like, look at your driver score for the day. And it said something, it showed like you accelerated brisk acceleration a couple times. Now, mind you, I drive a GR Corolla. I don't think anybody's not briskly accelerating in a car designed to be a sports hatchback. Come on. But it showed those parameters, and they weren't like over some threshold that I had previously set, but it was enough for me to see it and recognize I know what this is. Opt me out of all of it. Now I had to go deep dive into the settings, into the whatever arbitration list, all the fine print that you have to go and find to then find out how to opt out of this, to get out of those services, because ultimately I knew it was being sold. Now, do I believe that it's not doing anything at all? No, because if the system was already there, you could tell me it's turned off. How do I really know? How do you really know it's off? The only way you would know that is if you had a power switch to a camera or something, you plugged it out the wall, took out the cable from the camera, and placed it face down. You're like, this thing can't record or hear anything because it's not in the room and it can't see anything because I unplugged the power. A car is always on, and regardless of whether they say you opted out, you would almost have to prove it, right? And so when it comes to these systems, people hear this and they get like, well, why don't anybody just say no or sue them? Well, the problem is suing somebody like a Honda or a Toyota or a General Motors is having the money to litigate. You think they're not going to send the monster lawyers? Okay, they're going to send the all-star team to tell you that you're the one that opted for it and they're not in the wrong, and you should just be happy that you could even buy one of their cars and not pay me for my services again. So when this came up, I saw people talking about it. Some would, like I said, agree, saying you already got your information out there. Everybody already got it. Those big deals. So what? So, and that's what a lot of these companies and a lot of these services are banking on. They're banking on you believing that because I have some information already of yours, getting a little bit more is not a, what's the right word? It's not impeding on your privacy. It's not breaking that privacy. It's not breaking that trust. They're going to say, you already have something. What's a little bit more, right? What's the big deal? Why is everybody upset about that? And the point is because of things like your insurance. So when your insurance is going up and you don't know, and they might say, oh, the market's going up, all the insurance in the area is getting a little bit higher. You might not realize that it has to do with your information being sold from a variety of places. And you can't opt out of this. So some of these things, like there is an app called like Smart Driver that if you're checking into it and you're getting to your services, they said that, and this is from a gentleman, a law professor at the University of Chicago, said he was in favor of the usage-based insurance where insurance monitor mileage driving habits to determine premiums because people who are knowingly monitored are better drivers. People drive differently, said the impact on safety is enormous. But he was troubled, he said, by stealth enrollment in programs with surprising and potentially injurious data collection. There's no public safety benefit if people don't know that how they drive will affect how much they pay for insurance. So this is what I'm talking about. You got one side of it where you're like, oh, I can see the benefit. You can drive better. You'll be more conscious of your driving. And then the other side is not even knowing you're being monitored to begin with. I'm on the side of we don't want any of these systems, right? Now you could argue public safety and this and that, people are crazy drivers, this and all, argue all the things, then make the steps to get a driver's license more robust so that the new wave and the next generation of drivers that are coming on are being educated at a higher point. Similar to what they do in countries like Germany, where it's much harder to get a license. Maybe you have to introduce something that is a renewal period at a certain amount of time. Maybe at a certain age, you have to prove that you are capable of being out on the road. But there are other things to do than you trying to get these companies to make all these car smart driver apps because they are for profit businesses. None of it is nonprofit. None of it is for the public service of people. It is owned by somebody else who is then going to collect the data to then sell it because all of it is a marketing thing too. If you see in these apps, they make them fancy, they make them cool. They got Instagram ads. They got brand ambassadors standing next to kitchens, hugging their loved ones, talking about how whatever app helped save their life when they were going to the grocery store. So there's always something that tries to sell you on the benefits of it. But there's really no benefit other than them making money off you. And the reason why I keep bringing this up is because with this new age of electric cars, connected cars, you are going to have to be more diligent on the information that you are reading. When you go to buy a new car, the dealership is going to set you up with like a vehicle specialist or somebody who's going to walk you through what the car can do. And it'll happen quickly. They'll grab your phone and say, hey, download this app. I want to connect it to the phone. You're excited for the new car. You're like, oh, I want to connect to the phone. We're going to show you how you connect it to the car. When you connect it to the car, I'm going to show you how you can remote start the car. You are getting excited. New car smell, new car technology, and they're just clicking away. They're clicking it. What did you do on this box? Click yes. Click I agree. Click yes. Click I agree. And that I agree is enough to tell that system we got him. Okay, he on board. She's on board. We're now going to track what they're doing for the next 6 months. And if we notice any extracurricular activity, a little bit of spirited driving out that Whole Foods parking lot, guess what? Gonna make sure Sarah pays for that. Okay? And those type of things seem minuscule at first until they grow larger. And when you have people like Mozilla, the people that do the web browser Firefox, when you have their security analysts telling the public or telling this journalist in this magazine that in this New York Times paper that the automotive space for connected technology is the most open place for security issues, for breach of privacy, that it should be concerning because nobody's regulating it. Not to say that you should throw regulation on top of regulation, because that in itself can be its own issue. But something should be known for what the consumer is giving up, because when it comes back, when you become the person like this gentleman, Mr. Dahl, who was perfectly fine for all these years driving, and then all of a sudden gets a 20% increase, that's enough to really put a damper on anything that people are trying to do. This economy is already bad enough as it is. If I tell you your insurance is going to jump 30% tomorrow, that's gonna put something, into perspective for a lot of things that you're doing. Because listen, the times is tight right now, and that's just what it is. But what I look at this and what I realize is that, like I said, we gotta do our own due diligence. These car companies are definitely not about to stop any connected services. But I tell anybody that's getting a new car is look at what it says. Read that bottom line. Read that fine print. Find out why they're saying we need to connect this. We need to add this to your car. We need to track what you're doing. And especially any of them insurance companies. Now, listen, granted, if you're going to game the system and put the little dongle in your car for whoever insurance company it is and drive around like Miss Daisy for the next 2 weeks, knock yourself out. Salute. Can't knock the hustle. But if you're thinking that you're going to keep it connected, or if you think that your connected services in your car couldn't also just read back and say, hey, that first week, he was driving Miss Daisy. That second week, he was Dale Earnhardt. You see what I'm saying? Like, it can backfire in a way where they come back and change what they're doing. And that's what I had to talk about. Wasn't a long one, but I just had it on my mind. Like I said, pay attention to the services that they wrap up in candy and ribbons and bows for the convenience of your driving. We're just trying to get from point A to B. While it's nice to have apps and services, I'd probably be more inclined to let it run on my phone, marrying it to the system, than me having the car connected to any app on my phone to then show me my driver score. Like I said, on the Toyota app, they try to game it. They try to gamify this stuff. Oh, see how you do against your partner. Your spouse, she got a driving score of 79. Can you beat that today? Like, that gaming of the system is to trick you into thinking that you're some competitive nature. Like, they had somebody talk about on one of the ads for the ambassadors that, hey, I beat this week. John, he only got an 89. Nice. We sat there and have a little game, and I made sure to beat him. I got a 91. There's nothing for you. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to get a gift card on the other end of this, though that's coming. Don't think they're not going to incentivize this when more people catch on, and they're going to say, besides a discount, they're going to throw probably a Starbucks gift card at you. Hey, you maintain a driver post score of 80 and above for the next 2 weeks, we'll give you a $20 Amazon gift card. Watch how fast people sign up for that. Okay? Just because it's a free Amazon gift card. Hey, if you let us sign up and track your driving habits for the next 6 months, we'll give you a $5 gift card for Starbucks every single week. Folks are signing up. Just give away your data for nothing. I would encourage anybody that was listening to this podcast in this episode to think about what they're signing up for. Read that article from New York Times. I'm going to link it somewhere in the description. And pay attention to what they're doing and to the people that are sounding alarms saying, hey, this service and this system and this world that they're in, they're in a free for all. Okay, they're doing whatever they please, and folks need to check on it, especially when you got companies like your Apple, Google, Android. You got web browsers and people trying to be in incognito mode. They're using VPNs. There's a reason why this stuff exists and why some people make sure they use web browsers like Thor where you can't track anything. There's a reason why they're doing that, because they know at some point in time, whoever's collecting it, whatever oligarchs or families and companies and businesses are collecting all of this, one day they're going to sell it for something that's probably going to come back and bite you in the butt. Okay, I don't know what it'd be, but hey, chill out if you drive with them connected services. I mean, don't get too spicy in the streets. I'll be back for, a normal podcast episode quickly after this. But that's all I want to say, check your services, look at who's looking at your data. Don't give it up. Actually, if you think if you're hearing this and you're like, what do I do? Opt out all the way. Not just the first screen. You keep going until you might have to email somebody and say, I just want you to put this in black and white that I want out. Okay? Do it that way. Until then, as I always say, do as you wish and do as you may. You may want to sign up for these services, and that is your prerogative. Me, on the other hand, I'm going to try to hold on to my tinfoil hat as long as I can, okay? Until then, I'll see you on the next episode. As as I always say, this is Cameron Biggs, your host. This is CarQuicks. I'll see y'all around.